It's July and it's time to check in. How are you doing in your sales? Have you hit your goals so far for the year? Are you on track and are you going to make it by the end of the year? There's only about 122 days left this year. Does that scare you or does that make you feel good? Let's get started. So yes, we're halfway through the year. There's only about 122 days left in the year. And here's what I mean by that. There's about 22 weeks of 5-day weeks, let's call them. And then there's a few weeks in there that are just small changes. So you've got Labor Day that's coming up, right? That's a 4-day work week. And the other thing to keep in mind is that when you get at those 4-day work weeks, that week before, that Friday, more than likely people aren't going to be around very much. So you got to keep that in mind. But I incorporated that into my numbers. You've got Thanksgiving week, which I kind of wrote off. It's not a week. You're not going to be able to sell much. It's a check-in week. You're going to be able to talk. You might get a couple leads come in, but most of the time it doesn't develop much into something. And then the last week, couple weeks of the year, you're probably not going to get a lot either because it's the holidays. People are traveling. You may get a lead or two, but let's not count on those, right? So there's about 122 days left in this year, give or take by the beginning of July. So how do you know if you're on track? Well, first of all, what are you tracking? Do you know how your sales are for the year? You should probably know where you are in terms of your total dollars brought in, your total number of leads, your total number of leads that you're working right now. You probably all know all that stuff. But what are the things that you should be measuring for the remainder of this year? If you think about it as you've got 6 months, you're going to feel like, okay, I've got plenty of time. But if you think about it as I've only got about 122 days to work leads, to bring in leads, to work them through the process. And if your lead time is 90 days, you could have a problem if you're a little short on your leads, right? Or if you're not in the process with somebody. So what you need to do is start to think about what are the numbers that you should be measuring. So let me share with you some of the numbers that I always keep track of as I go through the year. The first number that I use is how many meetings do I have? So in other words, if I have a meeting coming up next week, I mark that down as I have a meeting scheduled. The second thing that I always measure is how many paying conversations have I had? So in this last week, if I had 7 paying conversations, that means I've got 7 leads that I've worked through. I've had the meeting and I've determined that there's pain there. So what you might see is let's say 10 meetings that I have, 15 meetings, whatever that number is. And then there's a lower number typically of pain meetings, meaning pain conversations, meaning that out of the 15, maybe only 10 of them actually had the need to continue in the process. If they don't continue, they don't get marked as a pain conversation that's going to move forward. The next thing that I'm going to keep track of are the number of estimates that it's time to move into that point of writing an estimate and going through that. Now, remember, you're not going to share that estimate just willy-nilly. You're not just going to send it to them. You have to have that meeting. So what I do is I say, okay, I've got a meeting that has gone through the pain process. I know they have a need. Now I know I need to write an estimate. I might track the number of times I write an estimate so I know it's worth going through that step, right? But then once I have that meeting, did they go through and did we move forward from that estimate? So how many times did I have an estimate review meeting is one tracking number. And then the next tracking number after that is going to be how many yeses and how many nos at the end of that estimate review meeting. So if let's say I've had 3 estimate review meetings that I go through in the last few days or the last week, and one of them is a yes and 2 of them are no's, okay, I know what that is. But there should be no 3 reviews and only 1 yes and nobody else has given me a no. That's a problem, right? So you should always be tracking how many yeses and how many no's. The other thing you can start to track on top of that, if you really wanted to be more detailed and granular, is you could look at it and say, if I got a no, what was the reason for getting the no? Because then I can back up in my pain conversations and start asking questions that are related to that possible no. And when I know that there's a problem that comes up during the estimate review process, and I get no's because of one reason or another, and I don't track that, what happens is when I'm in that pain conversation and I'm not asking the right questions to address that possible issue that could come up. So if it comes up more than once, if it comes up more than twice, if it comes up more than 3 times in the last month, that's an issue. Now I need to say, okay, what in my pain conversation am I not covering that's going to prevent that problem from coming up? So I need to make sure that I'm addressing that. So that can come in the form of a question. And basically what that means is like, I don't suppose this would be an issue, or I don't suppose that's a problem for you, whatever that pain thing is. And I have to phrase it in such a way that would make somebody go, yeah, you know what, that is a problem. Or I hadn't thought about that. We should talk about that. Because if that comes up again and again and again, I want to get ahead of it in my pain conversations. And finally, the last measurement that I always try to measure is how many dollars did I bring in? So if I track the number of dollars I brought in, now I know if I'm on track for sales, number one. Now if I'm measuring the amount of dollars that I've brought in, and I know I've got 122 days left, but I know my remaining amount of sales that I need to do, just for round numbers sake, let's say 100,000 for the next 122 days, that means it's $817 per day, selling day, that I need to bring in. That doesn't mean that every day I got to sell 800 and some odd dollars, but what it does is it breaks it down to the day. So if I take 3 days to close something, then I know it's 817 times 3 that value should be, or higher. And then I can multiply that out so I can figure out how much per week, how much per month I need to be bringing in, so that I know approximately how many deals need to close so I can hit my sales number. Now, for everybody, that number of 100,000 is just a number so that it's easy to round number everybody can put their head around. But if that's $1 million, if it's 3 million, 7 million, whatever the number is, it doesn't matter. Divide that out per day, and you'll start to figure out what is the average day sale that I need to do. And then what does my average ticket size look like? So is that 1 deal or is that 7 deals? That's the question that you need to know. So you can back that up into your numbers that you're tracking and saying, how many meetings do I need to have so that I can then hit my numbers for the end of the year? You're halfway through. Are you halfway or more in your sales numbers? You really should be by halfway through the year. You should be about 60% of the way to your sales goal by now. Because if you're not, you've got some hard weeks ahead of you where you're not going to be able to close anything because they're on holiday. They don't care. They don't want to be there. They're not working. They're not in their work mindset. That's normal. Just incorporate that into your numbers so that you're planning on that and it doesn't surprise you at the end of the year. Because the last thing you want to do is come across as needy in December because you're not hitting your sales goal, right? Now is the time to get ahead of it. Now is the time to start to work on it. Let me pause for a second. If you found this to be helpful, would you mind sharing this with somebody that you think might be able to use this information for themselves? Because as we go through halfway through the year, you've probably heard somebody make a comment about, hey, I'm struggling with this or I'm struggling with that. What do I do? This might be helpful for them. And until next time, remember, slow down and close more.